So good morning and welcome. This is the SLC push kickoff meeting. I'm going to give a couple tips on how to maximize and level up your push. But before I do so, I have a quick video that we're going to watch. I encourage you to take a couple notes. This is by Mel Robbins. She's one of the top keynote speakers for TED Talks. And this is going to be a great quick talk. I'm going to put it on a little faster speed. This is going to be a pen and paper. We're going to debrief this in just a moment. Mel Robbins.
Off. No one's coming to push you. No one's coming to tell you to turn the TV off. No one's coming to tell you to get out the door and exercise. The bottom line is, no one's coming. No one. You may or may not have seen the TED Talk that I gave a few years ago. One of the things that surprised me the most about that talk is that we hear from people around the world that write about one segment in particular. And let me play that segment for you because it sets up the conversation for today. And it's this concept of parenting yourself.
Parenting yourself.
When you become 18, nobody tells you that it's now going to be your job to parent yourself. And by parent yourself, I mean it's your job to make yourself do the crap you don't want to do so you can be everything that you're supposed to be. And you're so damn busy waiting to feel like it. And you're never going to. My son never feels like getting off his DS. That's my job. Get off the damn DS. Kendall, clean up the Barbies. If you're going to have a nude party in my bathroom, at least clean it up. God, chew with your mouth closed. We're not in a barn, for crying out loud. All right, dinner's coming. Get out of the pantry. As parents, and you were a kid, your parents make you do the things you don't feel like doing because you won't. Ever. Not now, not then, not ever. And even when you get good at something, you'll figure out something else you don't want to do. And then you'll plateau out and you'll get bored and you're like, I hate this stuff, it's boring. But will you look for a new one? No, you'll just bitch about that one. It's very, very simple to get what you want, but it's not easy. Wow. That talk was 6 years ago. I cannot believe how little my kids were back then. And I also hate watching it because that was the first time I had ever given a speech. So my voice is like really screechy and I swear, which I typically don't do on stage ever. So woof. Anyway, this concept of parenting yourself is really, really important for you to wrap your brain around. And let me dig into it just a little bit. I write extensively in part 2 of the 5-second rule book about how we make decisions. And the fact that we make decisions not based on what we know we need to do, not based on our goals, but based on how we feel right now. It's your feelings that make the decision for you. It's one of the reasons why parents are so important for kids, because if we let it up to kids to do whatever they felt like doing, they'd never go to school, they'd never do their homework, they'd never use their manners, they'd never learn to eat correctly, they'd never do anything. They'd just sit around and watch TV all day. That's the job of a parent. What most of us don't realize, though, and this is what I was alluding to in the TED Talk, is that when you become 18, when you move out of the house, when you're an adult, you have to parent yourself. Here's the rub. You're never, ever, ever, ever going to feel like doing the things you need to do in order to have what you want. You're always going to need to push yourself. You're always going to need to parent yourself. So what is the net advice on this? What is the bottom line? The bottom line is no one's coming. No one. No one's coming to push you. No one's coming to tell you to turn the TV off. No one's coming to tell you to get out the door and exercise. Nobody's coming to tell you to apply for that job that you've always dreamt about. Nobody's coming to write the business plan for you. It's up to you. And because you're only ever going to do the things that you feel like doing right now or that feel good right now, unless you understand that you've got to parent yourself, you got to push yourself, you're not going to make your dreams come true. You're just not. We're not wired that way. You weren't born that way, you weren't that way when you were growing up, and you're certainly not that way as an adult. And there's a tremendous amount of liberation that comes when you accept the fact that you're always going to need to give yourself a push.
So I like to start with this video today because I believe right now, especially during this push, especially during SLC, that we must parent ourselves. I had this conversation with someone this week. I think it was Celestial, maybe. I don't remember. I think it was that we must parent ourselves. And if we don't parent ourselves and we wait for someone else to do it for us, shit's not going to get done. Something's going to get compromised. So let me open up for conversation real fast, couple minutes. What do you receive about that message for you specifically for this push? Before we open up for conversation, let's put the pen to paper real quick. Let's put the pen to paper. What shows up for you when you hear this concept of parenting yourself, and how does it relate to the push for you? Let's take 60 seconds. 60 seconds. What shows up for you? 60 seconds. The concept of parenting yourself, and how does that connect to this SLC push specifically? Take 45 more seconds. How does the concept of parenting yourself align with your SLC push? Cool. Who'd like to go first?
I'll go.
You can just unmute yourself and go for it.
I'll go. One thing about parenting myself is, like, instead of just being like on Netflix all day, you get off your ass and decide, hey, I'm gonna make a few phone calls, contact a few people, go on Facebook, send out a couple messages, and then, stop watching Netflix. That's one thing that I'm gonna do.
Yeah. So the conversation is, if I heard Nick right, is earn Netflix, right? So it's like, earn it. I don't get to, what does a parent say? A parent says, you don't get dessert until you eat your dinner. What does a parent say? You don't play video games until you clean your room, right? So if you're parenting yourself, if I'm hearing Nick, I don't watch Netflix until I make my phone calls, book up my appointments, and send my messages, right? So that I love that. A great point, Nick. What else? Who else? Give me a couple more. Let's keep this conversation going. How else does this show up for you specifically for this push? Because you're not alone. I could assure you, you're not alone.
Definitely sacrificing more time to make more calls and demos, taking the weekends, taking advantage of that extra time when you don't necessarily are busy with school or work and stuff like that.
So Alex, you used a word called sacrifice. Okay, I want to leverage that word just a moment. So the word sacrifice means typically I'm losing something in order to gain something else. I'm sacrificing one thing, so I'm losing one thing in order to gain something else. Could you agree with that definition, or do you want to modify it?
Yeah.
So I would modify it. I would modify the word of sacrifice. What do you think could be a potentially a different word that could be used that demonstrates, instead of losing one thing and gaining something else, it's just choosing a priority over a distraction? Or choosing a priority over distractions. Let's say that. What could be a different word choice or another word choice to use instead of sacrifice? Because sacrifice in most people means pain. I'm losing something. There's pain that has to go with that, like the sacrificial lamb. It's painful to kill that lamb for, you fill in the blank, spiritual, well-being. People will sacrifice it. But what could be another word? Kuliana says prioritizing. What do you think, Alex? It was your words. I don't want to put
Um,
words in your mouth, but Liana said.
Essentially, managing time better, being more responsible.
Okay. So manage your time better. Responsibility. Let's try that word for a moment. Responsibility. Okay. So being responsible with my time during the weekends so I can book up more appointments and make money.
Yeah.
That word seems to fit a little bit. It feels a little bit better. You could feel it, right?
Hmm.
Versus sacrificing my time in order for me to make time to go out and make money and do appointments.
Yep.
Doesn't it's a little different, right? So why is that responsible then? Why is it responsible to do appointments and use that time during the weekends for your business? And it's irresponsible then, which would be the opposite, to not. Why would that be the responsible choice?
Because your manager set a level of expectation for you, so you want to meet those expectations. It would be irresponsible for you to let them down.
Hmm. So I don't want to let my managers down, and I also have created expectations with my manager. I created agreements, so I want to be responsible to the agreements.
Yep.
Alex, what's your thoughts on what Juliana said? Uh, Doing things that align with your goals is responsible, and prioritizing. Well, what are your thoughts about her thoughts? And by the way, if any of y'all have any like feedback on this, this is not just about me and Alex and I right now. This intervention is helpful, hopefully, for all of you. This is not just a conversation with me and Alex.
So my thoughts on prioritizing. Um, yeah, I think prioritizing also is also potentially a good word to use. Prioritizing, what you think is most important. Prioritizing to me would be a little bit more opinion based because everyone prioritizes different things. So maybe for some people, school comes first, or Cutco comes first, or whatever it is for them. So prioritizing could be up to the person, really. I think.
Yeah. And that's why I personally am biased. I like, Liana's response where it says doing activities that align with your goals. So what does that mean? What does that mean? That you need to first know what your goals are, right? So Deanna, is it Deanna or Deanna?
It's Diana.
Deanna. Okay. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure, the Anna, maybe depending on what part of the country, you might be in, but I just want to make sure. So say Deanna has her goal, maybe on her hierarchy of goals is like family, education, and then that third one is like a wild card. Let's call it health, but it's very close to financial independence. Like, I don't want to borrow money from my parents. Like maybe there's some, or creating a bright future for my life where I'm independent. Maybe it's not independence right now, but like in the future, I want independence. So it's like family first, school, health, and then it's like creating my future independence for myself. So if we know what these priorities are, how do we know during this push specifically, if you are using school as a priority or you're using school as a distraction to not do work? How do you know if you're saying the family dinner on Friday night is actually a priority or if it's a distraction so you don't make your phone calls? Or, you're saying that brunch on Sunday is important because it's family, so that way you don't do your workout on Sunday morning. How do you draw the line between what is considered a priority and a distraction from the other priorities? Anyone have a shot at this? Anyone have a thought? Because that's what happens. What happens is when we're really good salespeople, we can sell ourselves easily. It's like, yeah, but family's a priority for me. Mom asked me to, mom asked me to go run this errand. I got to go pick up my little brother from school, and family's a priority. So therefore I need to drop everything I'm doing to go be a servant to mom because family's first and I got to go pick up my little brother.
I just want to know, does it correspond?
Whoa, hey, Tim, 1 second, man.
Yes,
So therefore we play this game with ourselves to say that's a priority because it's coming from family.
Mm-hmm.
However, one thing that we also need to keep in mind is if you were working at Publix, which wouldn't be in your top 4 priorities, and you were already at work during that shift, is your mom going to call you and say, hey, you need to leave your job right now, drop everything you're doing to come pick up your brother from school? Even if it causes you to quit that job, I need you to pick up little Johnny from school today. And you would just drop what you're doing and go leave Publix in the middle of your shift? Probably not. So how do we draw the line of what's considered a priority and what's considered a distraction that we convince ourselves as a priority because it's demanding? How do you draw the line? Which comes full circle to what Mel Robbins talked about, which is parenting yourself. And sometimes that means even parenting your parents, because sometimes they think you're sitting at home because you're on Zoom in a meeting. They think you're at home on Zoom in a meeting and you're just chilling and watching Netflix. No fucking way. You're working. You're working. You're getting stuff done. But they don't see it that way because the boundaries haven't been made. So therefore, you haven't created a space for your priorities to actually be priorities. You're allowing distractions within the priorities to take ownership of your push. I don't know if any of that is connecting or landing, but Alex brought up a really great point here, which is I want to make sure that I don't, we went from sacrifice to saying being responsible, but sometimes we get confused on what's the most responsible thing to do. How do we choose that? That's welcome to parenting. That's why it's hard. Decision-making is hard. It's very easy to point fingers and say, that's what I would have done. That's what you should do. But when it comes to parenting and doing it and making those decisions, that is tough to do. That is tough to do. Looks like Timothy wanted to chime in, but then he disappeared.
I'm right here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, I saw that. I didn't. What's up? So talk to me. What do you want to chime in on, please?
I just want to know, does it correspond between a want and a need with the priorities?
Well, it's a good question. So how do you define a want and how do you define a need? So sometimes, it depends on your definitions of those two things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need to hit your goals or do you want to hit your goals?
That's true. Well, I do need to hit my goals, but I also have plenty of other things going on as well. So that's why I'm trying to figure out where.
So who chooses which one's more important or more of a priority than the other stuff? Who chooses that?
Me, myself, and I.
Sure. So how can you go through and make a list and determine premeditatedly which ones are more important than the others? See, what happens is we make our decisions based on feelings, like Mel Robbins just said. So if we base our decisions off of feeling, that's when we don't get shit done. So what we do is we want to get ourselves in an emotional state before the activity and decide what our priorities are before we feel. Did you know that we have 50,000 thoughts and emotions every day? 50,000 emotional thoughts every day. If we reacted to every one of those thoughts, we would get nothing done.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to premeditate it. So right now, Timothy, make the list, all the stuff that you need to get done. Let's do this. We got 10 minutes. That's why we're doing this workshop. Let's make the list. You said, I have a lot of things. I have a lot of priorities. Now, and here's what I'll say. If you have more than 5 priorities, you have none.
Mm-hmm. I don't.
So you want to create a hierarchy. What are those priorities? What are the actual most important priorities in your life? And don't get me wrong, there's things that need to get done. There's activities that need to get done, but I would make sure that those activities are under the umbrella of one of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 priorities.
Well, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, I make a to-do list and I categorize them by sections. Like for my first, I have school, and then next I have Vector, and then I also have I Am Academy, and I'm starting a lawn service business. Cool. And then I also have that as well. So
just to spit it back at you, you got side hustle, you got school, you got Vector. What was the fourth one?
I Am Academy is trading and stocks.
So stock trading.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we got so what I would say though is the stock trading, the side hustle, and Vector are all 1 and 3, which is income and experience, I would assume.
Yes, sir.
So all of that might be under that umbrella of income and experience as a priority versus doesn't matter where it's coming from. So like for me, I have multiple streams of income, and I put my energy to which one's going to give me the highest return.
Yes, sir.
So you have to figure out, okay, on Tuesdays from 9 to noon, I'm dedicating that time to trading. Why? Because that's when that's when it's hot. After Monday, I figure out what's going on, and Tuesday I'll see what the trends are, whatever it might be, right?
Yes,
And then on 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Fridays, I'm going to focus on the lawn, because at the end of the week, people get paid. They might be in better moods. They're looking forward to the weekends, and it's also hot in the afternoon. So I'm going to do it in the mornings as early as possible.
Sir. Correct.
Right. So you can strategize your schedule, but you premeditate it. So these lists are cool. I like lists, but you're not deciding what weighs more beforehand. So I don't know if this makes sense at all, but that would be my take on lists.
I'm not gonna lie, it actually did help me a lot, because I do have problems on like which task I want to finish first, and then jumping from the next and going to another, because I think that one might be more important at the time to do at that specific time. But that's when I usually just go ahead and just say, I'm gonna just do this section right here, get everything done. But when you try to do that, it's like you dreading yourself along the way, because you don't want to sit there that whole time and finish all of that in one sitting. You want to just go like 25.
The 2.0 version, Timothy, the 2.0 version is give yourself time frames for each of them.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that. I have take 30 minutes for each category. That's what I put on the spot.
That's cool. Some take 30 minutes, some might take 2 hours, but you give yourself time frames, and it's like in that time frame, I would also give yourself an outcome. And by the way, this is just for Timothy. This doesn't appeal to anyone. Like Susan's in here thinking like, well, I don't have a side hustle. How does that relate to me? But maybe for Susan, it's when I sit down to make phone calls, I give myself 30 minutes or 20 phone calls, or book up 3 appointments or whatever it might be. So it's like you're still figuring out that priorities. You're giving yourself a time frame, and you're giving yourself an outcome within that time frame. Because the goal is not just to sit there and make phone calls. So Zybet's not saying I'm just booking up appointments. No. I'm giving myself 30 minutes to do this activity to get this outcome. And then you say, for what reason? When you could go through this push with that in mind, I'm doing this activity with this amount of time, with this, so I'm doing this activity with this amount of time to get this outcome for this reason.
Yes, sir.
Write that down. Let's create that. So if that was like a linear, section of that sounded pretty good. I'm just kind of talking openly.
Yeah, I'm writing it down right now.
Awesome. So so this is just conversation with me and Timothy, I guess. Nobody else wants to chime in. So this is good. So what is the first thing I said? Know the activity. Then we said give a time frame to it. Get an outcome from that. And then a purpose, a reason on why you want that thing done.
I got you.
Those are the 4 things.
Yes, sir.
Eddie, it seemed like you wanted to chime in. I know you wanted co-host. I wasn't sure if that meant something.
Co-host was just to kind of help out for sound and whatnot. But I have a couple thoughts, especially I think back especially to my SLC push last year. It was in Tallahassee. I did not have a network there. This was before everything was virtual, or like completely virtual. So I had to find a way to basically create an entire network, going back into my network. Then from there, just kind of little by little, making the calls through the handful that I had. And from there, being able to get the recs and being able to prioritize, because at the time I was in one of the heat of the moments of one of my side businesses, while also my 2 fraternities and the other organization I had on campus that I had started the semester prior, and just trying to kind of have everything coordinated. But I knew I had to make my priority, and especially I had those 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks of SLC where I had to make it happen. I had to, and then I had to create my momentum kind of going into it and prioritize. So I spent several hours one day to write down, and these are my priorities. Then I got a little bit more meticulous on. I'm like, I'm spending this specific amount of hours working on this specific thing, and these are the most important. This is how many hours I'll then put. And then from there, this is going to be my schedule. and I made sure and I hit it, and it created an $8.5 grand push. I was at 50%, which was a nice little bit of income, because I always, and this was really the quote that drove me through it, was by Eliud Kipchoge. He broke the world record for the marathon by over 2 minutes. And he said, the best things is, no, it was, oh my goodness. Only the disciplined ones in life are free. If you are undisciplined, you are a slave to your moods. You're a slave to your emotions. That's a fact.
It's cool.
And it was a quote I live by. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if if you are not disciplined, you're a slave to the emotions. And that's so eloquent, and it's so true, because right now, the reason why I chose this topic for today, for our first day of the push, why are we choosing this as our first day of the push, is because nothing else you learn every morning of these alliances are going to matter if you are not in a position where you're ready to be disciplined, if you're ready to say, these are my priorities and this is what I'm doing and dedicate yourself to be present with what's in front of you. Keeping your head where your feet are is another way of saying the same thing. Not being worried about the future or nervous about the past. It's like, just be present, be what's in front of you, but you got to make sure you plan that out ahead of time. So if you're not feeling good about your plan right now, well, take today to map that out. When are you doing what? What are the activities? What are the outcomes of those activities? Why are you doing those activities, right? So that's essentially what we want you to put and how much time are you dedicating to those? So it's not like, and I would say you don't want to just wake up and say, let's just see what happens today. The push is about being intentional and then persisting until something happens. P-U-S-H, push. Persist until something happens. And that something is the outcome that you premeditated for that day. So I would challenge all of you to make a list right now that if everything else failed today, but only 3 things happen, what are the 3 big things that you need to get done today? So that way you put your head on your pillow tonight and you say, if all else fails, but I did these 3 things for my business, for your business specifically, for Cutco. And then a focus 2, personal. Big 3, business, focus 2, personal. Big 3 business, focus 2 personal. If everything went great in my business, these are the big 3 items, outcomes, activities, whatever it might be, but really the outcomes you want to get. It might be find a way to reach out to this customer that I haven't gotten in touch with, find a way to get to her. The next one might be make 5 phone calls to book up 1 appointment. It might be send 50 Facebook messages and get at least 1 Facebook post, something like that from my mom. I don't know. And then the focus 2 might be finish homework assignments 2, 3, and 4 and get a 30-minute workout in, right? It might be read 10 pages of a book. It might be, eat 2 meals, right? I don't know what it is. I don't know. Those are your focus 2 examples. Big 3, focus 2. You do that today and you start your push with that intentionality of saying, if all else fails, but I get these 3 things done for my business today and these 2 things done in my personal priorities today, and you do that for the next 18 days, ladies and gentlemen, what's 5 times 18? Let's think about that. Let's do some math here. 5 times 18, 95. You have 90 things accomplished, 90 items accomplished during this 18-day push. I got to lead to believe you're going to sell a shit ton of knives if you get 90 things accomplished. Let the sales be a byproduct of the activities that produce the results. So hopefully you got some value. Go ahead into your WhatsApp groups, post your biggest light bulbs and biggest takeaways. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you. I would, if I'm you, I'm not going to mandate anything. I would make 5 phone calls before you leave the Zoom. 5 phone calls before you leave the Zoom. I got to hop. I have another call right now. So if Eddie or anybody else wants to stay on, play some music, pull up the divisional queue, you can. But I got to dip and I got to roll. So 5 calls before you leave the Zoom would be my goal. But ultimately, you can make your own choices. I will see you. Our next event is going to be on Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Get ready for the next event, which is going to be on using Facebook to create appointments. Using Facebook to create appointments is going to be Saturday morning's lesson. So have a great rest of your day, guys. Enjoy the start of the push.